Alright then, I got me some 7-Eleven brand latte. And what the Japanese says right underneath that is cafe latte. And luckily I still remember how to read katakana and hiragana. But the kanji, like all of this, most of this right here, that's just too difficult for me. I can read easy ones like fire and water, stuff like that. But I decided to not go down like this little alley here because it's not well lighted and I'm sure the video quality would not be good at all. So I'm going to stick to the areas where there's light. But first, I'm going to have my coffee. I did. Now that I had my coffee here at the 7-Eleven, where should I go next? No, I am not going there. Okay, so getting back to my favorite subject, which is me, of course. Okay, so after they determined that the recovery of my account was not recovery but income, it put me at too high of an income bracket to qualify. So no Section 8 for me. And I had always wanted to come out to Asia. Oh, I thought I was pushing the button to go across, but that's for blind people. Oops. Okay, so I make too much money for Section 8, and I had like put off coming to Asia for a year because being in a Section 8 apartment would require a 1-year contract. So I told everybody, yeah, I'll go in about a year. And then when that fell through, people were like, why don't you just go now? And another guy was like, if I was in your position, I'd be gone already. So I guess that was the little kick in the butt that I needed. And here I am. So far, I have not spent all that much money, but I have had some setbacks, mostly with my health. And see, last Christmas, right before Christmas, my truck broke. It was the fuel pump. But it turns out that the week between Christmas and New Year's is the time when the vast majority of your auto mechanics like to take a little vacation. So I couldn't get it fixed for over a week. Finally, I got hooked up with a mechanic that was willing to do it, and he did it, and he had a very fair price. So Bears, downtown Lafayette, Louisiana, if you want to get your car fixed. That is highly recommended by me. He got me in right away after his little vacation. It might have helped that I dropped my friend Greg's name, but, you know, who knows? Drop Greg's name. Tell him you're a friend of Greg, and he'll get you in, and he'll hook you up. Okay? So, after my truck broke, I got lazy. I got super lazy, and I wasn't playing very much disc golf. And then finally I went to South Toledo Bend for the South Toledo Bend inaugural tournament. It was the first ever. It's a brand new disc golf course. And of course I represented Team Lone Star Disc, but I lost. But I was noticing that due to my lack of activity, that my fitness level was not where it should be, nowhere close. And then the week after the tournament, I got like really sick. It felt like allergies, you know. It's like I was all clogged up, blowing my nose all day long, and it was I just wasn't doing anything. I was just laying in the trailer, didn't play any more disc golf, and then I had to vacate because in Louisiana you can only stay 2 weeks at a time in the state park. So I went to the different state park farther south, and then one day that familiar feeling crept onto me. of when I first got diagnosed with AFib, and I just couldn't catch my breath, and it was getting worse and worse. So I drove myself to the emergency room and ended up staying a few days in the hospital while they used all the medicine at their disposal to get my breathing under control, and they did a fine job. And then after that, I got with the VA, and we had scheduled me a new ablation. I had already had an ablation. My first ablation lasted for a few years. That my heart was just fine for a few years after the ablation. Of course, they had tried a cardioversion before that, which is when they shock you, and that didn't work, and that's why we did the ablation. After the pacemaker also did not really work, but after the ablation, it kept me at a nice steady 60 beats. Okay, so we did the ablation, and it just didn't feel right after. But then the next day is when I noticed that my heartbeat was irregular, and I'm like, oh great, we just did an ablation and I'm already back in AFib. And of course the one nurse said, oh, it's not AFib, it's tachycardia. Okay, whatever. So then it wasn't getting any better, and I wasn't in any pain, and I wasn't feeling all that bad, but bad enough to complain. So we called the VA again, and the nurse this time that we spoke to did a remote login on my device, and she says, oh yeah, you're right, it is AFib, it's back. And she looked at other information, and she told me to go to the emergency room. So I finished everything I had to do. Got a little bite to eat since I hadn't eaten all day. Went to the emergency room. And yeah, that's when I got myself a nice shock. And they couldn't put me under because I had just eaten. But the nurse did tell me later that my blood pressure was so low that they probably would not have been able to put me under anyway. So I ended up getting a shock while wide awake. Let me tell you, that is an experience. It's not so much the pain. I was expecting a lot of pain, but you ever get hit in the head and it's like there's a loud noise inside your head? That happened, and it was like instead of being in pain, I was in 72 million volts of fear. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like it was fear instead of pain that it had coursing through my body. Okay, so that was another couple of days in the hospital until that was under control, and the cardiologist there said that since it worked for a few seconds, and then I was back in AFib. So they gave me a new drug, and the cardiologist said since I had 2 failed ablations and 2 failed cardioversions, we weren't going to do any of that again. So shortly after that, I had another appointment with my Houston cardiologist at the VA, and he said he wanted to try something else, and it's a drug called dofetilide. But it requires that I go to the hospital for 3 days, and I did. And this drug straightened out my heart within 3.5 hours. Yeah, it worked that well with me that everything was fine, I guess. Hold on 1 second here. I have to interrupt your regularly scheduled program because upon review of the video, I see that I did something that caused it to totally zoom in, and you can almost see the cell structure of my hair. So my explanation for that is that I absolutely hate seeing when people do their little videos and everything's backwards in the video. So I refuse to use the selfie camera on my phone, and that means I can't see what's happening on the screen of my phone. So until I get an actual camera, you'll have to put up with mistakes like that. I that well with me that everything was fine, I guess, as fine as I'm gonna get within 3.5 hours. However, I still had to stay in the hospital because they had to start like giving me smaller and smaller doses, I guess, to figure out what would be the right dose that will work for me without killing me. So I'm on 125 micrograms of dofetilide now, twice a day, for the rest of my life. But that put me in condition to where my next checkup, a few weeks after that, they finally gave me the go-ahead to head for Asia. So here I am, and I guess that's all I wanted to say in this video. So next one, I'll start giving the cost rundown. Okay? See you soon.